Let's jump right into a historical mystery that quite literally shook the entire planet. We're looking at one of the most violent, earth-altering events in recorded human history, the 1883 paroxysm of Krakatoa. But this isn't just some dry sequence of geological facts. It's actually a deeply human story about complacency, unimaginable terror, and a massive scientific awakening that permanently changed how we understand the world we live in.
Imagine for a second being on the remote island of Rodriguez, out in the Indian Ocean. It's late August 1883. Out of nowhere, you start hearing this thunderous, rhythmic booming, like heavy artillery. The local officials were so alarmed, assuming it was a naval battle right over the horizon, that they actually sent out warships to intercept this unseen enemy. But there was no ship. The source of that deafening sound was literally 3,000 miles away, on the complete opposite side of the Indian Ocean.
So that brings us to a massive question. What kind of cataclysm could possibly project a sound over 1/13 of the Earth's surface? What hidden tectonic forces could unleash a shockwave capable of circling the globe 7 times? To figure that out, we've got to travel to the Sunda Strait, right between Java and Sumatra, and look at how humanity first reacted to the warning signs.
Part 1. The Deceptive Calm.
To really grasp the absolute horror of this disaster, we have to look at the human reaction to its early rumblings. It's a classic, almost tragic study in how we often mistake a ticking time bomb for a harmless novelty. Before 1883, Krakatoa was this beautiful, uninhabited tropical island spanning about 15 square miles. It sat right at a complex tectonic intersection where the Indo-Australian plate subducts beneath the Eurasian plate. But to the locals and Dutch colonists, it was just a pretty green silhouette on the horizon. It had been peacefully sleeping since 1681. Well, at least until May of 1883. When the mountain decided to clear its throat.
Now, the human response to these early warnings was just a staggering display of complacency. When the captain of a German warship spotted a 6-mile-high ash plume in May, the reaction wasn't panic, it was intense curiosity. People actually treated the eruption like a festival. Tourists over in Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, chartered steamships specifically to go sightseeing. They sailed right up to the erupting volcano to marvel at the glowing clouds and these natural fireworks. Nobody realized the island was quietly preparing to obliterate itself.
Of course, that curiosity eventually gave way to absolute terror. Listen to this chilling, unfinished journal entry from an eyewitness named Albert Tissu, a passenger on a sightseeing ship. He was documenting a new volcanic cone rising from the sea when, suddenly, he smelled almonds. That is the distinct, highly lethal scent of cyanide gas being released from the earth. His sentence abruptly ends right there. It perfectly captures that harrowing split second when the spectator became the victim and the world finally realized exactly what Krakatoa was capable of.
Part 2. The Paroxysm.
The atmosphere out in the Sunda Strait shifted from that deceptive, almost festive calm into a ticking clock nightmare. Over just 36 hours, the Earth literally tore itself apart. Starting at 1 p.m. on Sunday, August 26th, gigantic detonations started firing off every 10 minutes. By 5 p.m., ships like the British vessel Charles Ball were battling a terrifying rain of hot pumice in total suffocating darkness. The climax arrived Monday morning at exactly 10:02 a.m. That third cataclysmic explosion, that was the one heard 3,000 miles away. By Tuesday morning, when the violence finally stopped, the geography of the world had permanently changed.
The stratovolcano didn't just erupt, it completely self-destructed. The 3 coalesced peaks of the island were essentially vaporized in a geological instant. To put that into perspective, the explosion unleashed energy 10,000 times greater than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It blasted up to 25 cubic kilometers of rock and ash straight into the stratosphere, leaving nothing but a gaping, submerged crater where a lush tropical island had been just 24 hours earlier.
Part 3. Decoding the Mega Tsunami.
Here's the most startling revelation about Krakatoa. The eruption itself, as unbelievably violent as it was, didn't actually cause the vast majority of the devastation. The true killer was a secondary consequence. 36,000. That staggering number represents the official death toll. But the great mystery for scientists investigating the aftermath was exactly how these people died. The overwhelming majority didn't burn in the lava or suffocate in the ash. No, they were crushed and drowned by colossal walls of water that literally erased hundreds of coastal towns across Java and Sumatra.
You can hear the raw human desperation in the survival accounts. Take the passengers of the Governor-General Loudon, for example. They managed to turn their ship head-on into the advancing wave, riding dizzily up and over the massive crest. As they looked back toward the land, they watched entire towns be instantly consumed. We're talking about a wave estimated to be up to 135 feet high. Entire populations rushed to the hills, clawing for high ground, but the water was just too fast.
For decades after the disaster, elite geologists and hydrographers were locked in a massive scientific debate. What exactly generated tsunamis of that monstrous size? There were two main theories. Was it a caldera collapse, where the massive walls of the empty magma chambers suddenly caved downward into the sea, violently displacing the water? Or was it caused by pyroclastic flows, dense avalanches of superheated rock and gas blasting outward and plunging directly into the ocean?
Well, modern science has finally solved the mystery. Recent physical modeling using highly advanced volcanic tsunami generators at Oregon State University, along with incredibly complex simulations, gave us the answer. It turns out that those incredibly dense, fast-moving pyroclastic flows, literally millions of cubic meters of superheated material aggressively slamming into the sea at high speeds, were the primary mechanism that displaced the water and created those civilization-ending waves.
Part 4. A global shockwave. Now, while the localized horror in the Sunda Strait was unprecedented, the atmospheric consequences of Krakatoa reshaped the entire world. This wasn't just a local tragedy, it was a planetary event. The sheer volume of sulfur and ash injected 30 miles high into the stratosphere actually acted like a global filter. It blocked solar radiation and dropped average global temperatures by 1.2 degrees Celsius for years. The aerosol dispersion also created these eerie, brilliantly colored sunsets all over the world. Skies so unnaturally vivid that they actually inspired Edward Munch's famous painting, The Scream. Meanwhile, barometers worldwide went completely crazy, recording invisible pressure shockwaves bouncing back and forth across the globe 7 distinct times. Those atmospheric tracking efforts actually gave scientists their very first proof that high-altitude jet streams existed.
And the timing of this disaster is absolutely fascinating because it collided right with a massive technological revolution. Think about it. If this had happened 50 years earlier, it would have taken months for the news to spread via sailing ships. But in 1883, the rapidly expanding undersea telegraph network carried the news to Singapore and from there to London, New York, and beyond almost instantly. Because of this communication revolution, Krakatoa became humanity's very first collectively experienced real-time global catastrophe.
Part 5. The Earth Transformed. The dust eventually settled, of course, but the legacy of Krakatoa continued to evolve in some completely unexpected ways. The blast sterilized whatever tiny fragments of the island remained, leaving absolutely nothing but lifeless rock. But, as we know, nature is incredibly resilient. Those barren rocks actually became a priceless living laboratory for biologists. For over a century, scientists carefully tracked how life returns to a devastated environment. They watched highly mobile birds and wind-blown seeds arrive first, followed decades later by slower-moving reptiles and mammals. This meticulous observation fundamentally helped establish the modern theories of island biogeography. But here's the twist. The Earth wasn't finished. From the watery 100-foot-deep grave of the 1883 blast, a new, highly volatile peak breached the surface in 1927. They named it Anak Krakatoa, which means the child of Krakatoa. And it's exactly that. A highly active volcanic cone, still smoking, still growing, sitting right inside the fractured remnants of its predecessor's crater. It's a stark reminder that the tectonic forces deep within the Earth's crust never truly go to sleep. We now know, without a doubt, that tectonic pressures taking thousands of years to build can unleash civilization-altering havoc in a mere 36 hours. In fact, in 2018, a flank collapse on this very same child of Krakatoa caused yet another deadly tsunami. So, as this volcanic system slowly rebuilds itself right in the middle of a densely populated strait, we really have to look back at the sheer hubris of those tourists in 1883 and ask ourselves, despite all our modern sensors, despite our advanced modeling, are we truly prepared for the next time history decides to repeat itself?